This is Professor Homa. Welcome to part 2 of ex4-showage, and I'll get you started on this. And I logged into my Homa 235 for this class, and when I log in I first see saved code that I've done in the past, but I actually want to start this from scratch, so I can go down to just the js.do link down at the bottom, and I could click on here, and it brings up the default here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe this out. So I'll just wipe this out. I have code for you to start with, and if you go to e-learning and you go to documents and resources, you'll see that under handouts, under notes, even though it's not really notes, but what you can do for this start code is just click on it. You should be able to just click on it and it'll open it up in its own tab, and it's just a text file. And you can highlight all of this and copy it. So I'm going to just do a Command A or Control A if you're on Windows or Mac, and I'll copy it. I'll do a Command C since I'm on a Mac right now, Control C on Windows, and I'll go here and I'll paste it. I'll do Command V and I'll paste it in there. Now, just by the way, it does show this in red like there's some kind of error, but it should work fine. I'm not sure why that does that. Even the default one does that, but everything should be okay. Now, you're going to still see this thing here, so just run the code. And what you need to do first is put a name in here. Give this a name before you do anything else. Call it ex4-showage, and we haven't been putting capital letters in here. And you don't have to have part 1 or part 2 or anything. It should just be, this will all be just one link that you'll use. So you just call that showage, and then I'll just do save, and that'll save the URL for that, so you're pretty safe for now. And if you just run code, not a lot happens right now. But what you are going to have to do is you're going to have to create a function. I have instructions for you to use to create your function. Now the function is already started here. I'm just going to backspace it so the curly brackets on the first line. And remember, a function starts off with function, the keyword, and then the name. So I already gave you the name, so you don't have to call it any name. You could change it if you want, but I called it showage. And here's the closing curly brace. All your function is going to go in here. Everything's going to go in here, and this is within the script that we have started. There's where the JavaScript starts. Here's where it ends. So all our code is going to go in here. These are just notes for you. And if you just follow those, you should be pretty easy. Some of these things you know how to do already. You know how to create a date object. And if you forget, I'll just get you started here. Remember, we did that on the first one of the first exercises. That was the one where we just do var d. We actually created a variable that equals the date object. We did like var d, because that's what they used in W3 schools. Var d equals, and then we had new, and then it was date with a capital D, and the parentheses and a semicolon. That creates the new date object. And then we could use the D, because the D represents that. And so that's already number 1. So we already did number 1. And then 2a and 2b are really, they go together. So we're going to actually declare a variable and use the method to get the current year. So what we'll do is we'll say var current year, because that's what we really want. I'll say var current year equals, and I'll put a space here, and what that's going to be, we're going to use that date method. And remember, all that was just d dot, and the method to get year was get full year, not year, but full year. It was like that. And what that should do is whatever we're pulling the full year from the date. D is the date method, then we're pulling the full year. So what we're getting, so current year is going to be basically equivalent to 2017. If it happens to be 2017 right now. And it's basically just going to store that. So it's storing 2017 right now, and you're going to use it whenever you need to use it. So that's what variables do. They store data. So right now, that var current year is storing 2017 because it's pulling from the current date, and it's pulling just the full year, which is 2017. So that's 2a and 2b. Now the next part of this, which is 3, it says declare a variable that is set to your name. Now I'll just show you how to use this, because we haven't pulled a variable from a field yet. But I just want to show you something here. I left this in here so that you could use it. These are just statements that basically reset these to empty. So every time you run your code, they should wipe out. But we're actually going to make a button that does that too. But what you can see that's happening here, it says document get element by ID name, which is this thing, which is that box. It's saying name. So it's getting that element by ID. Name, and it's saying dot value, before we use .inner HTML, but we're not talking about the HTML. We're talking about the value of what anybody puts in here. So it's going to be the value of that text field, and we're setting it to nothing. Now that's just by default. It'll do that before we run our function. So by using that, what we're going to do is I'm going to highlight this. I could use this right here. I'll highlight it, and I'll go down here, and if I'm making a variable, and I'll say var equals, and I'll paste that code that's there. And it's basically saying var, and I got to give it a name, and what this is going to be, I think what we used is we're going to use a var, and we'll change the variable. The ID is called name. Let's call the variable my name. So I'll call it my name. So at least I know that's my name. So the variable my name is going to be equal to whatever someone puts in here. Now we don't need this anymore. So what we could do is just end it here. So it's basically going to say the variable my name is equivalent to the value that's pulled from that ID. So whatever anybody enters in here is going to be equivalent to my name. So we're basically storing a variable my name. It's going to be your name. So if they put in Rich, my name is Rich. If they put in Steve, my name is Steve. So whatever it is. So it's basically holding that name so you could use it again, and we will use it again once we display it. And then we're going to do the same thing with this. So you can really just copy this. This is 4. You can see how easy this is. This isn't that hard. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to say variable, and we'll call this one year born. In the original one we just said year. Up here in this one we said year. So we have to say year because that's what the ID name is. Remember, this is the ID name. That's identifying that. This is the variable name we're going to give it. So we're going to say year born is going to be equal to whatever value people put in here. So, you know, if I put in Rich in 1967, my name is going to be Rich. Year born is going to be 1967. So, and remember, we don't put anything equals here. You typically don't want to have two equal things. You're either having a variable that equals something, or you're displaying something on the page, like nothing. This is basically saying, well, put nothing in there. That's what it's saying. Here we're saying the variable equals to whatever is in there. So those are our first 4. So we're almost done here. And then we have a variable named age that calculates current year minus, I'll stretch this out, minus year born, because we have, here's our variables, current year, my name, and year born, and they're storing information. But we want to calculate that information so we know age. Now, all we have to do is just say var age is equal to, it's going to be current year minus year born. So we have to use these. And with variables, we don't have to put any special quotes around them. Remember, strings require quotes, but variables do not. So we're just going to say current year minus year born. And we'll put a semicolon to finish that. So we don't need any quotes here. So now we have 4 variables: current year, my name, year born, and age. And they're all storing information. They're all done. Age is basically storing whatever people put in here. Now, we don't know what it is until they put the data in. But for example, if I put in 1967 and if I put in Rich, it's storing that. It'll store, age will get stored as 2017 minus 1967, which will come out to 50. So that'll be in there if those are the values we put in. It all depends what values you put in. That's why it has dot value. So that depends on the value. So that takes us up to number 5. And the last thing we're doing, and I'll let you do this one on your own, the last thing we're doing is we're basically going to say we don't need a variable for this. We're just going to write a statement. Now a statement is just like this. It's just going to say, and I'll just tell you, document.getElement by ID, the ID that you want to target this area down here. You want to target display age. So that's the idea you want to target. So you want to do like a getElement by ID, and you want to target display age. And then you want to put .inner HTML equals whatever you want to put in there. Now let me recommend one thing. You could just do this. You could just say document.getElement and that whole thing. You could put that whole thing, and it's going to be display age. And this is as much as I'll do. And then it should be .inner HTML, and it should be equal to whatever your statement's going to be here. But before you do that, The problem is it makes a real long line and you have to put all these things in there. What you might want to do is before that, and I'll just put a return here, you might just want to create another variable. And so this is where variables sometimes they make things more efficient. So you don't have to have a really long line of code. If you just put var, and let's just call it message. You could put var message equals. And then here you can actually put the string. So that down here you just have to put inner HTML equals message. So basically you're just setting when you say you're displaying it on the page, you're actually just displaying the variable message, and here we're going to define what that message is. This is where we're going to write hello and I have all this stuff here. You could even copy this. You could even copy this here and put it here, and then what you're going to have to do is replace these brackets and put the variable in there, and make sure that you have plus signs on either side of the variable, and make sure you close off all your quotes. So if it's hello and then there's a space, you have to have a space here. So you would have to have something like a space, a quote, and then your plus sign. So it'll start off like that. I'll let you figure out the rest because you should know how to do this already. But it's going to be like that, and you might have to try it a couple times because you might miss a space or something. But these bracket things are going to be replaced by the variable. So that's all you need to do there. And then when you're done, I'll let you do this one completely on your own. When you're done and it works and you could show age, what I want you to do, even though when you run code it's going to wipe it out, what I'd like you to do is to put a button down here that says reset. Now, there's not one there, so you're basically going to copy the button here and you're going to put it underneath here. Now remember, you have to put your onClick equals your function in there. Don't forget to do that. If nothing works, it's because you don't have your function in here. You have to put button onClick equals and then your function name. And then your next button, you're going to use a different function. And you might be thinking, oh wow, I have to create a separate function. Yeah, you can create a separate function. You can do it right up here. You could even copy all of this stuff. You could even copy this, paste it here, and just put a function and do something like this. Call function, the function keyword, call it reset. Call it something like that. And then make sure you close it off. And all that it's really going to have to do is reset these, and it's also going to reset this one. So you can take this other, basically you could have this statement just equal nothing too. So you could even copy this and put it up there. So you're going to have three elements that are going to reset once you hit a reset button. You're going to have this one, which is that, this one, which is that, and then you're going to put another one down here, which is going to be reset display age. I'll just put a note there for you. You're going to have another statement that says reset display age, and then when you hit the reset button, it'll wipe all these out so that they're blank to start, just so you know how to do that. And we're just using empty strings to do that. These are called empty strings with the double quotes. So you'll have an empty string. You'll just set basically this element, display age, inner HTML. You'll set that to an empty string as well. You won't use value because remember, values are only for these fields, these input text fields. So that's what you're going to have there, and then you're going to need another button, and the button's also going to have to run the other function, and your other function is going to be called reset. So you're going to have a separate function called reset and a separate button that's going to run the reset function so that you can do that right away. So you don't have to run your code or refresh the page to do that. So I think you'll be able to do this on your own pretty quickly. It's not that hard. It's review of operations that we've done already, but I'll try to let you do it on your own a little bit. I'll have written instructions to help you through a little bit too, so if you have any questions, let me know, and then all you have to do again is just send me the URL. That's all we have to do since we're doing it in js.do. Make sure you save your updates as you go so that it saves what you did. And that's it for ex4.